Welcome to the Sporting Club at the Aventine in San Diego, California. We're here with Gravity this season. Our sport this month is basketball. So what we're doing with basketball is, because it's a sport of constant motion where we're running, we're sprinting, we're twisting, we're turning, we're pivoting, we're defending, we're offending, we're shooting, we're jumping, we're dribbling. So many skills available in the sport of basketball that we have to break it down into chewable parts. Now, because basketball is a sport of constant motion, there's two real components of it. One is the skill-related components. The other is more of the foundational or the functional foundations. We rely on our coaches primarily to deliver the modalities or the training available, or the training to increase the skill of the athletes. As trainers, our roles are more injury prevention and creating that functional foundation throughout the body to be able to handle some of the loads, some of the decelerations, the accelerations, some of the reaction type of stuff that's involved in basketball. So the way we're going to break this down, because basketball is so complex with all of its movements, we're going to break it down, and today we're going to talk about defense, defensive reaction type of training. When somebody's defending a player, they're typically in what we call a ready stance, which means they're going to be in a flex position, and a lot of times their arms are going to be overhead. That creates a little bit of a trick throughout the chain, and we'll take a look at that when we get into the chain reaction biomechanics. In the next series of Gravity this season basketball, we'll talk about the same concept, defensive reaction training, but we're going to talk about it from the bottom up. Today we're going to focus on top down. So what are we doing with our hands? How does that react throughout the chain? Next time we'll talk about our feet on the ground and how that causes a reaction throughout the chain. So let's dive right into it. Let's get into basketball, defensive, reactive type of skill training. Foundational training. We're going to rely on those coaches for skills. And we're going to talk about our upper extremities. I'm going to bring in some super special help here. We have Chris. He's a trainer here at the Sporting Club. Welcome, Chris.
Good to be here.
And Chris is he plays some hoops. He's got some basketball. He's got some skills. So I'm not going to play him right now because I know he could defend the heck out of me. But I'm going to kind of provoke a reaction in his system simply by moving this ball. So when we talk about defensive reaction, if I just face Chris and I start to dribble, what does he start to do? He starts to get in what we call a ready position. You can stay there. And I got some tricks. I got my tricks up my sleeve. But if we look at his body right now and we say freeze, right where you were, let's get you back there, and we say freeze, we can see that he is in a ready position. He's ready to attack. And he's got to be able to attack in every single plane with every single. I could shoot the ball here, I could pass it here, I could try to go between his legs. Now if I'm going up here, you can just keep your arms overhead for a second. I'm warming him up now too. His hips are flexed, so that means his butt's loaded. With his arms overhead, this puts a little bit more emphasis on the lumbar spine, and also kind of takes the butt out a little bit. His arms want to come down because I'm tired. Remember when your coaches, you can stand up for just a second. Remember your coaches doing all the drills, you have to keep your arms up the whole time. That was a pain in the butt, literally, because it kind of took out our butt, put the load into our back, into our quads, into our calves. So it felt uncomfortable. Now, I wish I would have known this stuff during basketball training because I could explain to the coach why in the heck this felt so weird to me. So when you're in a defensive position, we know that the principles of basketball, when we talk about basketball, are that we have ground reaction force. We have gravity acting on our body. We have momentum of mass as he's moving around, and he's driven. He's driven by this ball, and he's reacting to the driver. So no matter what, if I'm playing against him and I've got my MJ skills and I want to toss it around him, or I'm stuck in my pivot, you can see that he is reacting to this ball. He's trying to predict where in space I'm going to throw it. He might even be paying attention to stuff that's going on behind him. He can tell where the picks are. He can tell where the rollouts are. He can tell where the offensive players are to be able to use his auditory skills, all the sensory skills in his body to predict where this ball is going to go. So today's lesson, or today's focus, is going to be on reaction. Reaction, the upper extremities to the ball or to an audible cue. Because sometimes the ball may not be, a player may be calling a play or might be reacting and splitting the defense into different patterns. So with our overhead reaching, when we go into, those are our principles, the gravity, the ground reaction force, the fact that the client is driven by the ball. From our principles come our strategies. Our strategies are typically going to be to recreate that type of environment, for one, so that I can see how his body reacts. I can see if he has enough dorsiflexion of the ankle. I can see if he's comfortable in this position, or does he go into a kyphotic position. I can see how he's able to move from that position, because that's that's home right now for him. And I can also identify the transformation zones. We've talked about transformation zones before. That's where we're basically going from an eccentric to a concentric, or we're going from an initial position to an ending position. So there's a lot of change that happens there. So if I just sit here and do this drill with Chris, and I'm just moving up here, then I can see, hey, he's pretty planted. He's probably gonna get the ball if I'm not careful. So that gives me an opportunity to look at him as a whole. What we use the GTS for is to break down those movements into those foundational or those functional foundation movements. If we look at the upper extremities, we're looking at overhead movement, and we're looking at rotation throughout the trunk, and probably frontal plane movement as well, back and forth. So you got the sagittal plane, you've got the frontal plane, and we've got the transverse plane. So instead of just identifying limitations on the ground, we can put them onto the GTS, put the client on the GTS, and essentially recreate those 3 planes of motion so that I can see what's happening in his shoulder, what's happening in his cervical spine, his thoracic spine, all the way down into the hips. So the first GTS exercise is going to be what we call a lateral overhead lunge. So we're basically a lateral lunge with overhead reach. Now this is kind of a tweak from the lateral lunge that you learn in your PFT course, your 8-hour course. But that's what this is all about expanding your horizons, about building more and more exercises to accommodate the human body, which is capable of a ridiculous amount of movements. Okay, primary strategy, everything today is reaction driven, and it has to do with the upper extremities. So what we're gonna do is, if I'm defending him, or if he's defending me, and I took a leg away, just as if he's going to defend me and he's gonna have one hand on my hip and the other hand up in the air, then I'm gonna basically just get him into a loaded position, and I'm gonna see how his body's reacting. He's on one leg, and I might try to toss it back here. I wanna get it past him. And this is exercise, folks. Is this tough? Is it easy? It's not about just going up and down the rails, but using the modality as a component to take a look at the client. So then I might say, all right, I noticed that it's a little difficult for him to come back into thoracic extension. So I might stay there for a while. So if I have him here and he doesn't know this, I'm gonna act like I'm coming up here. So I'm just gonna do a couple reps, up and down, maybe over here, up, drive him, just like that. And now his left leg's starting to be a little fatigued. I can smell the hydrogen that's imbalanced in there. And he's working more frontal plane. So if I wanna go up or I wanna go down, he's still getting all that shoulder movement, well done. And it's allowing me to kind of see how he's reacting. Now I'm trying, it's difficult, I like to look at the whole body. We're trying to isolate from the trunk up, or from the hips up. So we're looking at the thoracic cage as well as the glenohumeral joint and his cervical spine. I'm gonna switch to the other side, get him trained evenly. And this is kind of training and evaluating at the same time. So we do the same thing where I'm coming in, and I'm stuck in my pivot. I want to reach him up. I want to get him back. I want to really get him up there, You can see his back maybe down here. He's really doing a good job. He's moving, and now I'm called for a 5-second rule. So you got me, good job. So there's your lunge. You can use that kind of as a tweak, and the reason I put you in a single leg stance is if he's coming at me and I'm defending him and you're turning around, you're dribbling, then I'm typically going to be here. And if I'm coming out here, then here I am. I'm out on that left leg, and I'm reaching around with that left arm. So that's the why behind that exercise. There's always got to be a why behind each exercise. Second exercise is we're going to get more traditional with regards to the cables. We're going to use our cables. We're going to keep our pulleys at the number 2 position. And you saw me reach that down and grab the rails to lift that, right? I'm going to grab my handles and get Chris into a chest press position. So go ahead and have a seat here facing this direction. And I'm going to have you take these handles with the cable overhead. And it's all I'm doing now. Now I can do 2 things. I just got a great idea with the ball, because this is what you initially want to react to, is if I want him to react to this, then now I've added load. So this is a real simple tweak. I can come overhead, I can go downside. It's a little funny, a little goofy, and then I might say, hey, why don't you just do some static equilibrium, back and forth, keeping it a little bit higher, just going back and forth, right up to here. And now I'm facilitating that response throughout his trunk, throughout his thoracic spine. He's getting that rotary movement. He's going in all different planes. And he's also getting a lot of strength in the shoulders. So two things, I can just go into a set of incline chest press. I can go into unilateral, or I can go into static equilibrium, which is more of kind of a functional movement pattern. I can also use the ball to stimulate a response throughout his body. And this is a little bit more functional, so I don't even have to look at him. I can be looking over here at my game plan, and he's still getting a load throughout his trunk and shoulders. So there's another exercise for you to try. That's called an incline chest press, one of the basic exercises. It's just your ability to tweak it for this season or gravity sports that gives you that empowers you to be kind of a sports-specific trainer. The third exercise, I don't know if you're gonna like this one, Chris. The third exercise is what we call lying prone with extension. Now I'll give him a little help by raising the incline. This actually makes this easier. It's one of those tricky exercises where you raise the incline, it reduces the intensity. And I'm gonna have him just go ahead and lie almost like Superman. Put your feet down there on the lower base and just lie down. And you're gonna keep your feet a little bit wider on the lower base so you're kind of stable. Now, I can stand behind the GTS or I can just cue him verbally like we did with the chest press. The focus here is on to work on this if you're in a flex position and you're defending, is to be able to stay close to the ground so that you can move in all directions but still be able to reach overhead. So you're getting extension and you're getting rotation. It's a combination movement pattern. So what I can do is just take this ball maybe and have him look up, and if this gets uncomfortable with his neck or back, then this isn't an appropriate exercise, so I have to keep that in mind. The other thing I do is I bring it up here, I come over here with the ball, I can use the ball as a driver, and I say, oh, I want him to work on that left side a little easier. How easy is it for me as a trainer just to do this? I'm making good money now, right? He's not liking me on that left side. Or I can just cue him with verbal cues. So I can say left, right high, right higher, left mid, left high, left higher. And then we'll go overhead maybe, right overhead, left overhead, and so on and so on. The trick here is really to recreate the motion that you see within the sport. I like the ball, I like this one, because this gets an immediate reaction at him, and he's getting a nice little load throughout the lumbar extensors, the full chain reaction of the whole thoracic cage, as well as all the way pretty much down to the hips. Perfect, thank you very much. So that's basically this season. We've kind of talked about the principles of the movement. We talked about the functional foundations. As trainers, our role is injury prevention. Hopefully some of the stuff that we do with our clients and athletes also helps them develop better skills in their sport as well. The basic thing you want to do is look at the function of one component of a sport and recreate the action so that you can simulate the action to stimulate a reaction throughout the body. If you think about your business component, you think about small group personal training, this is a wonderful idea to get a whole team in, or groups of 5 if you have that much equipment, and tweak things up from there. So if you create a program like this, you're going to have to rely more on your verbal cues. If we're doing lying prone extension with rotation, then I'll call right, I'll call left, or maybe I have a whistle so that they respect me more and think of me as a coach. Who knows? You can tweak out however you want. But it's a great way to tie in or market yourself as a sport-specific trainer to a coach that says, hey, I can help your athletes become better grounded in their functional, foundational exercises in order for them to improve their playing skills on the court. We'll see you next time for the bottom-up approach to basketball defensive reaction skill training.